chair of deputy chair of the Badna, she's Damu Fund, and Botagoz Abisheva, deputy chair of the management board, DBK, Development Bank of Kazakhstan. Let's give a big hand of applause in regards to our speakers, please. And as during other sessions, panel sessions before lunch, there will be an opportunity to send your questions to Telegram bot. The QR code will be on the screen now. It is supposed to be, according to the scenario, this way. And you can download and send your questions. And during the second part of our sessions, I will ask this question. It depends, maybe all questions or just part of it. I will ask these questions and I will ask our speakers. And the organizers of this conference have prepared 4 questions, 4 topics that the participants of our session are supposed to be voting during the session and at the end. I think I will have to read it out loud. 4 questions. These 4 questions you will get in Telegram bot. We will not waste time on that. Everybody can read it. Traditionally, 4 questions. And then the question and the answers, A, B, and other options. So let's start this session. And we are going to start with state authorities. Mariya, sorry. So we are under the regulator. And that is why we know, I will not repeat, before lunch. Others participated before lunch. I couldn't participate. You were announcing the numbers on funding and financing, ESG globally and the world. It's clear that our country is behind, not in absolute but relative indicators, if we consider the general volume of funding of our economy, GDP, and others. And we are in the beginning, at the start of our way. And also, it is obvious that Kazakhstani financial institutions and other potentially international ones, international financial institutes that could participate in funding and financing and implementing ESG in reality, and of course green financing. It depends on the regulating and on regulations. That's why we would like to listen to your steps, Mariya, what the regulator has taken, what kind of measures, and what are the plans about general plans. Medina has informed us during the second day. So now let's talk about this from you. Thank you, Oraz. And as any regulator, or our efforts are regarding 3 dimensions: the general policy and within the frameworks of ESG policy, regulatory basis, and the third aspect, those creating those stimuli that could create attract our emittents and financial organizations to ESG market, in particular by means of regulatory norms. And according to the assessment of national economy, in order to achieve carbon neutrality, during 2021-2030, we will have $220 billion of USD as investment, long-term period. Considering this, we think that this investment will be $6.475 billion US. And at the same time, of course, the financial sector is supposed to be the main one in this, that will issue those financial tools that will be redistributed in economy. And the agency actively works in the sphere of ESG agenda. This year, as everybody knows, the ECO code was accepted and adopted, and the green financial tools last year in the beginning, the ecological code in the beginning of last year, right? Yes. Yes, 2021, last year, so yes. And since last year, we are trying to develop this topic really quickly. And during pretty much short time, we have adopted the list of legal documents, and at the level of legal acts and understanding of ESG tools and obligations, we shouldn't forget it's not just green bonds, but the obligation of sustainable development, social bonds. And the list of documents were accepted by the financial supervision of the order of issuing of these financial tools. And in collaboration with international organizations, we have designed the recommendations and the guidelines on information disclosure according to the recommendations ESG in ESG sphere. And it is being discussed by the financial community, and we are in the final track. And we hope that during 1 week or a couple of weeks, this guideline and manual will be distributed and provided, given to no, just the recommendations, the guideline like manual, and as you know, within the frameworks of that roadmap that is being designed in regards of realization ESG in Kazakhstan, we have several steps. And the first stage, that is recommendation, and this guideline will be basically the recommendation too, and this information will be disclosed on a voluntary basis. We have several institutions that have already done it, and Halyk Bank, so far as I know, yes, they will tell about themselves by themselves. And last year, this report was published by them, and we hope that despite the fact that it is a recommendation, our financial institutions will implement and use this guideline and this in their activities. When it comes to the rest of the work, the great block is connected with the following aspects that during this year we had different trainings, educational trainings with financial organizations, and next year we hope to design the next document for financial organizations will be significant and important stress testing of ESG risks. We'll start from the second-tier banks as always. Stress testing will be implemented in 2024. Methodology and scenario of stress tests will be designed in 2023. And these are the main blocks of that legal database the basis that we're working on. When it comes to encouraging, subsidizing, and stimulating, I think we will get back to this question with Gaukhar. Mariya, I can let you go, but then I will get back to you around the circle because, that's subsidizing, that's where the government is, or someone international, when someone gives the money, it's clear. But from the point of view of regulatory policy, we can stimulate by means of classification. Again, I'm just facilitating for our favorite banks, that by means of these or those norms, procedural norms, we can simulate the projects by means of ESG because of certification. So it would be greenwashing and etc. So probably you would take some time to think, or you can answer right away. Well, the work that you have mentioned, diversification of the assets and opportunity to obtain these ESG tools, nowadays this work is being done. And speaking from the side of procedural consultation, we have the idea of accepting ESG rating, and this question is very actual, and which ratings will be adopted and accepted. So in regards to diversification and the opportunity of obtaining by the financial institutions, not just second-tier banks, and nowadays in regards of fund assets, this decision has been made already by the National Bank. You see how important that is? Yes, 10% of that limit that is designed to procure and purchase the shares, 10% of this National Bank plans to purchase the financial tools and in this green sector. And the same limits will be for the pension assets that are in private management. And the second aspect that we would like to mention with international organizations, we work on this question about the co-funding of some specific projects. And the main project will be in compliance and correspondence to ESG ratings. In order to activate this work, we are not waiting for some certain verificators that will be created at the territory of Kazakhstan. We will recognize the rating scores of the accepted and recognized rating agencies that have been working with verification for a long time in ESG funding and financing. And the Big Four and other organizations, they provide such an assessment and evaluation. Okay, thank you. It's clear. Nowadays, you as regulator, you have such an agenda that you see, right? Or you have some other things to be hidden. Well, technically speaking, that we are acting and functioning step by step. And of course, the roadmap will be pretty large, and it will cover several questions, creating our own rating and scoring rating agencies, our own verificators, and creating the legal jurisdictional base, which is connected with ESG. And not too many banks have the projects on ESG lending and crediting. We have the potential at the exchange, and we have directed $131 million ESG money for ESG projects by means of the exchange market, and we are thinking it's just the beginning. Here we would like to move together with the market. And lately, we are pretty much liberal. We're working in a liberal way on regulating in the sphere with legal acts, and we're trying to act in parallel with the market and understanding the needs of the market. Thank you. So in parallel, it means that financial institutions, they come up with their ideas and proposals, yes. Somewhere it is some sort of self-regulation that grows to the level of regulatory legal base. Thank you, Mariya. Okay, let's move on according to the schedule, but I can see the questions are coming to you. Be ready. Stay conscious. So, I'm sorry, I forgot to represent the fifth participant because I was looking at people, not at the text. And the fifth participant is Daniel Bouzas, Regional Coordinator for Europe, UNEP, UNEP FI activities on sustainable finance. That is the translation. Well, since I was not here during lunch, when Daniel will join us, he will be on this big screen, right? Okay, good. Then let's move. Then we will give him the floor later on. The next speaker, I would like to give the floor to Murat Koshenov. Mariya has started already telling us that Halyk gets ESG rating several years ago, and they issue the reports on the sustainable development despite a simple annual report all the time. And one of the MSCI ESG Research, one of the famous organizations, and we know that bank issues green loans, green credits, and I am involved in activities with renewable and got the refinancing from Halyk, the green refinancing, and we know that you purchase ESG bonds very actively in our market. So I believe Murat said a few words about the motives that bank tries to follow, and maybe something that I haven't mentioned, some interesting aspects that are happening, and how do you see the further development for the bank in the country? Thank you so much, Oraz. So I have a short presentation, please, if you can start sharing the screen. We can see that Kazakhstan probably is not in mainstream on ESG, but very actively moving, and I participated in Astana Finance Day, and we have a large oil and gas conference. There was a big session on ESG thanks to the colleagues from Kazakhstani exchange fund, and it's great that we had such an opportunity during the conference. So how did we come to ESG, the largest bank in Kazakhstan, which is in all regions and it works in different directions, and traditionally we have issued on corporate and social responsibility. How did we come to ESG? And we are the emittance at London Fund Exchange Fund, and periodically we participate some meetings on the roadshow. And I remember our visit in 2019 in Scandinavia. It was a strict question: what are the aims and targets of sustainable development you have included in your strategy? And there was the second meeting in a few days in London when I came to this meeting at the fund, and analytics asked me about the financial part questions during 20 minutes, and then he asked me, and we have ESG analytics, so the rest of this time he will ask questions. So 30 minutes he was asking these questions. After that we were totally exhausted and we started learning what ESG is. That's how our story began. And since 2020, this report we started issuing in 2020. We've been learning, and this year it's been our third report on sustainable development, and we do it in accordance to the international standards here, GRI, and we have rating from MSCI ESG research, and we found out about it just from our investors, that this kind of rating agencies, they do not always do it for money, and you don't have to have this agreement with this rating agency. There is a request from investors community, and answering this request, this company actually provided this rating, and when we've started issuing this report and publishing it, we've improved our indicators on disclosure, and they have improved our rating. What do we do in regards of ESG? As Oraz has mentioned, we issue green loans, and moreover, last year, in the beginning of this year, these two companies have got the loan for financing, for refinancing, and they've got it including this second-party opinion when not the company itself, not the bank itself says that these loans are green. They have the approval from the external independent qualified party that it corresponds to green loans. And the Halyk group is pretty large. It's not just the bank. It's about other organizations in the group, Halyk Finance, and our broker company, Institutional Bank. And last year, they participated actively in ESG agenda, and they were the organizers of green bonds for good clients of ours, Murat and Damu Fund, and the partner on social bonds. We have implemented the principle of sustainable development to the strategy, and it was external request, and we have come to this by means of recognition, and out of those 17 goals we have chosen 11, maybe too many, but as a bank we are not focused on one segment in one region, which means we have a really wide spectrum and list of ESG. It reflects a great amount of operations that bank has. And we have incorporated ESG into our corporate strategy. We have the Committee on Sustainable Development, but we didn't go the way that ESG is just some division or direction. We have tried to integrate ESG in accordance of directions. When it comes to social responsibility in work with employees, and we have included into the committee, relevant committee, and we have done a lot from the point of view of including different policies, and a little bit what we are doing in regards of other directions, that our chair of management is a woman too, and in general we have no problems with gender policy. In group, the female share is 73%, and at the top management and average 64%. We implement actively ESG and we decrease our impact. You can see our reduction of direct ecological impact about Scope 1, Scope 2, and it's quite significant progress. In 2021, the number of people that came back to work, because in 2020, lots of subdivisions and colleagues that were working remotely. But nevertheless, more people got back to the office, client base, database grows, but we could reduce and decrease this impact. But again, the 3 bullet points, what's important, what banks should do. This is indirect impact, of course. It's not surprising that banks in general, financial sector has great capital and has an opportunity to have the direct and indirect impact on the way how clients have the influence on ESG agenda, globally speaking, regionally, at the country level. That's the work we started doing this year, no matter the challenges of this year, and with the support of BOD, we've got an opportunity to follow this agenda and to work on different policies, integration of ESG into the risk management system, to have the responsible funding and financing, the great block about emissions on Scope 3, on portfolio in conditions in terms of Kazakhstan. That is very difficult task for companies that think and calculate their emissions, not too many companies, and even less regarding those companies that publish it transparently in available database. As an example of some credit bureau, unfortunately not too many of those too, and we have to work with those clients that are ready to work and those who know. And in regards of other clients, that we are trying to understand how they can do such evaluation, and that's what we do in regards of the sectoral metrics, but it is a great task. Why are we doing this? We have 2 elements. The first element is a regulatory document element, and we have listing at the exchange fund and follow the requirements of this exchanges, and according to the loan fund, TCFD, the emittents have to publish this in assessing the financial risks in connection with the climate risks, and it is in correspondence to the new strategy that we have adopted last year. Thank you so much. And one additional question from the moderator, and I can see the questions to you as well. This is very interesting about Scope 3, what you have mentioned, and truly so, indeed, you have quite diversified corporate portfolio among banks of Kazakhstan. And Halyk Finance and corporate bonds, and you understand the situation. So indeed, you are saying that it's quite difficult, but we know from quasi-state sector who publishes these numbers, Scope 1, 2, 3, but the majority, yes, they don't publish it. And how do you assess, how do you evaluate the movement in the corporate sector in this direction? For example, unfortunately, we do not have the corporate sector. Maybe it was mentioned before lunch, but I think bank keep the track of this and they monitor how these progress is going on. Well, quite difficult, because it's quite difficult to calculate according to the whole portfolio. We have 500 borrowers in corporate business. We have several thousands of borrowers in SME, small and medium business. And we will, of course, it is unreal to require it from small business, because not even all companies of large business actually do these calculations. Of course, we had some discrepancies there, and the work is pretty much difficult, and we're working on this during the 4 months, basically. I didn't see the final number, and we still have the time to calculate it, and in accordance with the requirement of the exchange fund, to publish this. And indicators of our indirect impact and influence, we will publish this, and it will become the part of our report. And in the report for 2022, we hope to see it. Yes, it will be like separate report according to the TFC standards. Gaukhar Buribayeva, the next question to you, and we'd like to give the floor to you. We know the Damu fund, and we know that the government created you, and some certain financial resources are given to you in regards of micro and small, medium business a little bit, and which is absolutely important for our country because we do not have too much of small and medium business. And I would like to tell you, just in general, you will have the presentation. Oh, okay, no, okay, report. Speech, okay. And we would like you to tell about this segment in how possible it is to have this progress on ESG transformation. In some subjects themselves, they don't even know what can be done, what should be done. Thank you. Yes, the fund was 25, and for year after year, we have different tasks and objectives on the sustainable growth. And being the governmental development institution, of course, the mission is sustainable development, high-quality development in Kazakhstan, and of course, different segments of business, micro, small, medium, and in the context of ESG agenda during the last 3 years. We have got good results, achieved good results together with the agency for regulation and with exchange with agencies. We have realized several important projects that simulate, enhance, and to give good push of green financing. As the colleague from Halyk Bank has mentioned, yes, we have issued social bonds. It was last year in Kazakhstan, and these bonds were verified and were awarded as the best issue. And we were the first ones in Kazakhstan in 2020. We've issued the green bonds at the platform of ICFA. AIFC, and together with UNDP, we realized 2 programs that I think have given good start of support of green projects and about the renewables and about the projects in energy saving and the energy supply and etc. Everything that comes into the spectrum. I would like to say that annual growth of green projects happens. And moreover, this year, we have new program, national project on entrepreneurship development. Yes, by the government, this program was adopted, and we have unified all the programs in one big program where some certain criteria were written, and we have included the green projects, and these green projects were included into the priority spheres of economy that are supposed to be supported and developed. Subsidies were distributed for these projects as well. And speaking about UNDP program, we also have the instruments on subsidizing the main debt, and this list is pretty much large, and subjects of microbusiness, small and medium, they can contact us and they can get the support and assistance. And there are some specific products. Of course, green projects, they are really expensive projects, and of course, loan money are required, and it's pretty much specific. And taking into consideration all these parameters, the programs were designed. And at this time, if we consider this fresh data, we have supported during 2 years 128 green projects. Were supported 192 billion tenge credit portfolio. So speaking about Damu, pretty good numbers, good statistics. And here we have SME, basically, small, medium business, lots of projects we have on recycling and on renewables within the frameworks of the green bonds. We have supported the project of Turkestan Oblast, and There, we had this renewable resources. UNDP supported us in subsidizing the coupon, and that's why it was pretty much affordable, relatively cheap, and the borrowers, for them it was about 6% for end borrowers, and because and in case of lack of the collateral, they can use this Damu fund. So since it is UNDP, it's just their guarantee. No, in any case, regarding any tool, the entrepreneur can use any tool that is affordable and applicable to them and realize the project. So, briefly speaking, that's the way it is. We can talk a lot. We have many different projects and many different initiatives. So, according to the tradition, small question. You, personally, where do you see the direction where Damu, in particular, can strengthen its involvement in simulating the availability and affordability of the ESG projects for micro, small, and medium business? Speaking about involvement and development of this market, our tools are applied. There's cheap funding, and we understand that there is this wearing out of these networks, and everything is required to be replaced. Large capex and investment. As state institution, we apply different subsidies and guarantees, cheap funding that we provide. We do not do direct finance, and we fund our partners, second-tier banks, microfinancial organizations, in order to get this privileged loans and credits to the entrepreneurs. So the MOVE Fund, at the moment, works in regards to not really stimulating, but supporting this market. We do not want to be the first ones, and we want the second-tier banks and market to work as well. And yes, it is really important because there is some special segment and sector of clients, and Mr. Shalkar was mentioned that they have the certain line with the EBRD on green finances specific line. So we should have different channels, and the development is pretty good, and lots of emittents, green emittents, and different green bonds, social, and big perspectives. And the fund has the essential resources and programs. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gaukhar. And we will get back to you with questions from the participants of our session. Now I have the dilemma. Speaking about ESG, should we give the floor to Daniel as an international politician, or to Botagoz? What should we do? I'm not against. Boys go first, maybe. Well, it will be more difficult if we follow the principles. Then we should talk together at the same time. So I think we will give the floor to the guest. Thank you, Botagoz, for our traditional Kazakh hospitality and the love to our guests. So,
Daniel, please.
Daniel.
Now your turn to speak. Right now, Gaukhar mentioned about UNDP's work in Kazakhstan, which is quite productive, as we could understand from her speech. And UNEP is a sister organization to UNDP. Please, if you explain to us what exactly you are doing generally and specifically in our region in Kazakhstan, please.
Okay, so thank you very much. I believe that in the morning, earlier in the day for you, you have already had the presentation from Aida Kurmanova, that is the head of the Central Asia office of UNEP, and she was explaining as well what is the key work and the key role that UNEP has been playing in the country as well as in the region. So on my side, just to clarify a bit as well, I'm coming from UNEP FI, so United Nations Environment Programme Finance Initiative, which is a specific subset of UNEP, where we engage concretely and directly with financial institutions. So our main work is on engaging with the financial sector. So if I may, I can share some slides. Hopefully you can see them. Yeah, I think you can. So this is just a brief presentation to let you know what it is that we do and how do we engage, and probably as well what could be the next steps in Central Asia, and especially in Kazakhstan. So UNEP, what we're trying to do is to catalyze action across the financial system to align economies with sustainable development. In order to do that, we engage with the finance sector, and we are doing so by generating principles as well as alliances. Those are sets of key commitments that financial institutions can adhere to in order to integrate sustainability into their operations. So we created the Principle for Responsible Investment, which are now a separate entity, as well as the Principle for Responsible Banking and and Sustainable Insurance, as well as the UN-convened Net Zero Alliances. We provide, in that sense, practical guidance tools to support all of the finance industry to limit the greenhouse gas emissions, protect nature, promote circular economy, and support financial inclusion. And we do as well engagement with policymakers and financial regulators to set the scene at a larger stage. So we've been doing this for 30 years. You can see probably here in my background that we are very proud that we've been already doing this for such a long time. And you can see here some of the milestones in terms of our development. So we're part of UNEP, so we're part of the United Nations Environment Program, but in 1992, a group of financial institutions decided it was a good moment to engage in a more concrete manner on sustainability. And from that moment onward, we have been evolving quite steadily. So how are we structured? Well, you can see here that we are working throughout industry elements as well as thematic approaches. So we're mainly focusing now on banking and insurance. We're working through the investment side with our colleagues on the Principle for Responsible Investment Association. And we also work through the thematic approaches like climate, nature, policy, etc. And as well at the regional level. So I am the European Regional Coordinator. I take care of Europe, which is a pretty broad definition in the UNEP family, but we also have colleagues in North America, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and Africa. So regarding our membership, so currently we have around 470 institutions almost, with more than 300 banks, 120 insurers, supporting institutions, and almost 100 trillion, more than 100 trillion assets represented. You can see here that Europe is the most populous region with more than 220 members, but I can say that we do not have any members in Central Asia. We have no members in Kazakhstan yet, and I was wanting to use this opportunity to actually invite any financial institution that is interested in understanding how to integrate sustainability approaches to think about joining. So regarding the mobilization, this is how we are split in terms of the specific Principle for Responsible Banking and Principle for Sustainable Insurance, 300 to 100 members each. And now we are trying as well with the investment side to work out in terms of the leadership. So how are we doing this concretely in terms of the thematic approaches? Well, first, we have climate change that is mainly looking into the green aspect, so the green finance elements that you can probably be more familiar with, but as well that includes our work, nature, SDGs, pollution, circular economy, social and human rights, as well as policy and regulation. So regarding the climate aspect, so the first element of the thematics is climate. So we work concretely as well with, again, banks, insurers, and investors to drive their commitment to reduce emissions and make sure that we achieve the Paris Climate Agreement goals through three alliances. The Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, that it's focused on how asset owners can adjust their portfolios to the Net Zero by 2050 goal. Net Zero Banking Alliance, this is looking at how the lending portfolios and the investment portfolios of banking institutions can do the same. And the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, that is mainly looking at the insured risks. I'm looking at the premiums that are insured and how that can actually achieve as well the carbon neutrality. So we are also looking into disclosure frameworks like TCFD that was already mentioned by some of the previous speakers. We are working with 70 of our members throughout, again, all of the different financial institution approaches, piloting the recommendations, trying to understand how to fully integrate it into the financial institutions work. And we have developed a lot of guidance and tools on that front. We also are one of the key conveners of the TNFD. So if the first one is about climate, the second is about nature, financial disclosures, and it's a work that we're still in the beta version by 2022. And next year, we're hoping to release the final work and continue the piloting and tool development. So regarding the building the professional expertise, we have now launched recently the Principles for Responsible Banking Academy. This is mainly geared towards banking professionals that can be interested in understanding, okay, how to start integrating climate into your operations, as well as for board members. So we go from all of the levels of the financial institution to integrate this, environmental social risk analysis and TCFD elements. And that would be it. That would be the brief presentation. I don't want to go more into the details unless you have specific questions that you would like to ask. Or if you would like me to go in more into detail into any of the principles, I can also do that. But I think that for a brief introduction, this would be more than enough.
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel. And yeah, I think we don't need right now more detailed explanation of the principles. Everyone may download them. Yeah, but it's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that no one financial institutions from Kazakhstan is not yet participating. So probably after today's conference, hopefully, Halyk Bank.
Sure.
Or my friend Mikhail Lamtadze, where is he? Will join this one of these three alliances. Immediate second question, and then probably we come back to you through audience questions. This academy, which you mentioned in your short presentation, is this a kind of a virtual online academy, or it's more brick and mortar academy? What kind of institutions?
Yeah, it's not brick and mortar. It's actually, yes, for the moment it's online. We may do some specific courses or some specific elements at some point in person, because we are going to, first we have the overall material that is accessible by let's say joining the academy and seeing the courses, choosing the one that you want. We're collaborating on this with GIZ, so the German development institution, as well as Charter Banker, that are helping us with the content and the development. But we are also focusing on specific countries. Now, in the beginning, we are focusing on Mexico, Egypt, and India. But we may expand it as well for other countries. And I believe that one of the key elements that we're looking into is to expand it as well for Central Asia, as well as other countries that may be interested. So there may be some in-person components, but yes, for the moment, it's only online.
Understood. Thank you very much. And теперь Botagoz.
And now, Botagoz, the floor is yours. Your ESG aspect. So I think we know DBK as the largest and main development institution that the government has created, this DBK. And of course, DBK has very unique, large projects, and you have an opportunity to dive deeper into the problems of the borrowers. And from this point of view, you have the largest leverage, basically, to push the borrower and the real sector towards ESG transformation. So that is why, Botagoz, please tell us, where are you and what are your plans for upcoming years? Thank you so much for this opportunity to take the floor. I would like to express gratitude to you organizers of this event. It is really interesting discussion that we have to discuss. We need to do this. We need to share our experience. As Murat has mentioned, within the frameworks of his report. Indeed, investors, especially even now, they precisely consider and look at this problem. I think in 2-3 years it will be difficult to be at the market of the lending capital and crediting capital if ESG standards are not implemented inside the company. We have prepared a brief presentation in regards of bank activities, how DBK implements and initiates ESG factors in its activities, and implementing this ESG standards, of course, improves ecological, social, and corporate governance, but it seems like half of the presentation is absent. Please, can you correct this? Okay, it improves the ecological, social, and governance aspects, but it has the impact on financial and economical indicators because it allows to set up efficient management of the company. So a bank draws great attention to the projects on creating ecologically clean productions and manufactures and financing the projects on usage the alternative resources, energy resources. Within the framework of its activity, you can see to the right, you can see that directly or indirectly we have the impact to achieve 14 out of 17 ESG provided by UNO. And banks, in the bank we have approved the strategy of bank development, policy of the sustainable development, and the policy in sphere of green bonds. And we should mention that at this moment we have the discussion of new strategy of the bank that will have long-term perspective, will consider long-term perspective, and it is being prepared within the paradigm of ESG. Again, I would like to repeat the sustainable development today. That is the topic, which will be the key indicator for the company, for the industry, for the countries in general. Next. Bank plans, getting back to the question, how are we working with our clients? We are trying, by means of the paradigm of ESG requirements, we are trying to implement into the projects some specific requirements that will allow, not really allow, but will push our clients to change the internal policy and procedures, by means of which clients will improve their opportunities to attract additional financing. Our portfolio is the big share is given to those industries that have this greenhouse gases emissions. And for the bank, greening this portfolio is one of the tasks that we are working on. And the bank, besides the priorities, are all these statements, the key initiatives in accordance with the long-term new strategy, without which it will be impossible to achieve our aim. And the bank plans to be the financial institution to support the sustainable development. That is why we are working on the waste management and gender equality and greening of the portfolio and many others. And plus, bank initiates the strategic documents for the countries, such as National Project Damu, the strategy on local urban development. Since we perceive ourselves as the key operator in the realization of these plans, the bank has approved the strategy green bond framework within the framework of green bonds issue. This project is ready, this program is ready, it's registered, and we're waiting for the better market conditions in order to have an opportunity, affordable conditions. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And we've got the second party opinion, and the program is ready to be issued. Just according to Tenge, it's a little bit too expensive to attract, so we're waiting for our moment and for our lucky hour. The next slide represents the information regarding the new initiatives of the bank and the efficiency of renewables and electron bus. Having this privileged financing, the bank can have the impact, and we have initiated the questions, and the work has been started on the clear transportation transition. For understanding those budget credits and lending that we get, they're not long enough, just 20, 30 years. And we understand that in 10 years, it will be essential to change the transportation, to change the vehicles, to start implementing this clear using clear vehicles. Again, this waste management was one of the initiatives. And again, here we have our projects that have been realized by the bank. The renewables, sources of energy, one of the most attractive investment niche in Kazakhstan. And we use different financing tools. We're trying to expand these tools. And nowadays in our portfolio, we have 10 projects. 2 projects at the stage of being worked on. And if we want to mention that these projects that are being realized, the level of capacity, it is 560 megawatts, the total capacity, and after implementing those 2 projects, it will be 150 megawatts more. So large scope of work has been done. And these projects were financed by means of commercial money. Those questions that were asked to Gaukhar and about involvement and what we can do, there are no programs from the side of the government that will allow to finance more. As example, these are 2 projects were financed according to the market conditions. The next slide, in regards of gender equality and inclusion and DBK, you can see that 50% of the employees of the bank are women, and the managers are 50%. So quite good indicators. And I thought that we would have good indicator, but Halyk has 73%. It's impossible to overtake in this. Yeah, well, when you have a better equality, so it's difficult to struggle with Halyk. That is the heritage of the Soviet Sberbank, so it is really difficult. And in addition, I would like to mention that we can see the active work being done with the European Investment Bank, with the EBR, ADB, EBRD, and we are preparing the roadmap that will be implemented in future. So rather actively, we work in these regards because we understand it is essential, and I think we will come up to the rating. That's the question of time, and it will depend on how ready we are internally speaking, because at the moment we're doing this diagnostics inside the company, and then in future we will come to this. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention. That's briefly about the activities in this sphere, the activities by Development Bank of Kazakhstan. And I will ask you one question. Actually, 2 questions, because you are a big organization. So you have mentioned, and I wanted to ask this question, it's clear that there are questions with funding, right, with Tenge Fund. and with non-tenge as well, and especially for you, since you're not deposit bank, but again, we had an opportunity to communicate with the Minister of Economy a little bit. He shares a little bit this concern. And do you have some ideas, some work with the government in understanding the sources, especially when it comes to financing ESG projects? And another short question is in regards of governance, speaking about letter G in this three letters abbreviation. In regards of new Kazakhstan conditions, DBK has done the significant steps, speaking about transparency in regards of new projects that were given for financing. It has been published, and you update the end users and the borrowers. And about the old ones, the acting ones, you haven't done this, right? So it would be great impact into the governance. I will explain the reasons to you. Do you have some kind of timeline on that? Speaking about the first question, we initiate and we want to get to the national project, just Kazakhstan, and all of this work and the initiatives have been worked from our side, and in order to identify and issue some specific credit, loan, we need time, we need budget, and we need the support from the government. And we will come to this eventually, because without subsidizing and funding for this section, for this industry, it will be impossible. You could see those 10 projects, and in my opinion, in my vision, is that it's not that simple because of tariffs, etc. It has its impact, and it has the influence on the cost. Regarding the first question, and speaking about the second one, why aren't we transparent in this regards? That is the topic that we are working on, and we announce it openly in the regarding the old projects. We cannot disclosure. Well, actually, we can disclosure if our client allows, which means we have this permission on new projects to disclosure the information, and regarding those projects, it's difficult to do because we have to disclosure something that our clients allow to disclosure. So about the percentage of clients who gave their permission, you know that we gave the permission, yes. Well, that's why you're asking if you hadn't done this agreement. Well, it's new Kazakhstan, yeah, new projects. All new applications that come to the banks, they give this agreement. Regarding the old ones, more than 50%, they have given their permission, and we have the part that think that there is no need to provide this information. And there is such a project name and shame. Maybe we should start applying it. I think you will see that soon. It will be the case. Disclosure of the information. We've got this recently after February events, after the January events. February. January, in February it was the war. Yeah, January, sorry. I've confused the months. So after the January events, we had the critics. After the critics, that was the work on transparency. So nowadays, we have our meetings with our investors and really surprised with our website and with our transparency. And they say, well, you are rather transparent, open. Everything is open, and you can... It's not commercial, you know. It's just the true case that our website is really amazing. I would support in our group of companies in Byterek the disclosure information. Yes, sister support has arrived. It's not the female solidarity, but I would support truly so that in Damu we have 172,000 projects are supported, and all this subsidized. It's published. You can see it really. So, well, since everybody knows about Damu, I didn't even ask this question to you, Gaukhar. Okay, that's clear. More than 50 They agree? Yeah, that's amazing. I think it will convince our society and government and others. I hope. That's the time of the question of time. Thank you so much, Botagoz. Okay, let's get to the questions. We have 25 minutes only left. The most interesting time questions from audience. I can read, or I will try to choose in the extent that I understand, to try to make it brief. Just choose the ones that you like. No, it's not fair. Don't ask everything. I know the answers, but some others don't know the answers. Okay, well, if we're going to be quick, maybe we will be able to answer all questions. Okay, so tempo, blitz. And we will try to say when it is not addressed personally. So, whose initiative? So there was a question about the ratings, about local or international ESG ratings. Who knows the answer? Nowadays, we do not have recognized rating agencies, local ones. We hope that during this upcoming years, we will have 2 agencies that will provide ESG ratings. One will be established at the territory of AIFC. The legal entity has been created, the Center of Green Finances, and it will be working on ESG ratings. And next year, I hope, within the frameworks of Kazakhstani acting legislation, we will have one more rating agency. I will not disclose these plans, unfortunately, I cannot disclose this information, but we are using international ESG ratings. Well, maybe you just can name several international ones. Maybe it was interesting. Nowadays, those projects that enter the market mostly have the ratings of Big Four plus Expertbra. Good, thank you. I would like to add. Yeah, please go ahead. The MOVE fund has the procedure of ESG rating. It will be S&P or Moody's, 2 international agencies that have specific competency on this question. And we are moving this direction too. Maybe I will add this topic of ratings. Except the rating agencies, we have specific agencies. We have representatives from MCI, ESG Research. We have big company from ESG Ratings, Sustainalytics, and others that are especially focused on this. I think that's a good comprehensive answer. I will not read it totally, but approximately 15%. These are the author is about the gas emissions and methane including that goes to the agriculture, including everything when it comes to cattle and speakers. Aren't you afraid that the development of one of the components, green finance, will decrease the standard traditional support of agrarian sector? Botagoz? Because Kazagr, you know, it's Baytirek has done it with Kazagr. Oh, okay, I'm confused. Sorry, I cannot understand Baytirek in the structure. But anyway, all your sister AKK and Kazagr. But in any case, the industry shouldn't suffer because agrarians require more funding. I will not be able to answer it in a full extent. Maybe colleagues know it. Main emissions are not in agriculture, so far as I know, but electricity, energy, metallurgy, industry of oil and gas. So I think these 3 segments are about 50% or something like that, their share of emissions. And agriculture is there too, but it's not the leader from the point of view of emissions. Yeah, so the number is less than 15. And that's the question about financing. I would address what to do with those sectors that I have listed. There are big questions to them because for energy transition, we need to have big amount of money. And there are some certain voluntarily commitments and obligations from the side of Kazakhstan. It should be transformed somewhere into the strategy. And we have the national plan on decreasing. So there are more questions in other sectors, in short-term conditions specifically. Speaking about state programs, no limitations. And as it used to be said before, the female entrepreneurship, we don't have any limitations, men, women, that's the same inside the sectoral, industrial, no limitations.
Спасибо. Ну, в общем,
Thank you.
не будет ограничиться пока
So it
финансирование
will
нашего
not be
сельского
limited,
хозяйства.
the financing of our agriculture. So that is the
Мария,
outcome.
вопрос регулятору и два.
Mariya, the question to the regulator. Two
Я по очереди лучше
questions,
буду задавать.
maybe one after
И, ну,
another.
в принципе, можно
But
другим спикерам.
in general, we can address it to other speakers too.
А первый вопрос,
The
вот
first
из
question,
опыта, который на
based on
сегодняшний
the
день, как я понимаю,
experience
извлечен,
that we
о поддержке
have got, the lesson learned on supporting ESG financing,
как, какой опыт учтен и может
what
быть
is the
использован при
experience
организации
is taken
дальнейшей
into consideration in organizing the further support
Понимаю,
of
это не чисто
ESG.
вопрос АФР.
I understand it's not really the question of this specific agency, but since you are the only one from public officials, yeah, it is a little bit general question, not really for regulation and development of the financial market, but still taking into consideration the general experience. ESG, it's not just green financing, but first of all, sustainable development, which includes the experience of corporate governance and risk management inside the company. Here, we have special notes in the system of risk management. We will work on this scheme. I have already mentioned that stress testing will be implemented in 2024 as the mandatory stress testing aspect in regards of all directions of ESG financing in all 17 directions. And so far as I understand, it is really well developed main questions in these 14 directions, and this stress testing methodology and scenario stress testing, it will be designed based on those methodologies that we have, and we were taking into consideration and working on the recommendations, TCFM and others, all those European directives as well.
Ну, понятно, по крайней
Okay,
мере, мне.
clear to me at least.
Вопрос, он частично связан.
And the second question, Mariya,
Нет
it's
ли
a little bit
такого, не
related
переживает
to
ли, прям
this.
написано финансовый регулятор, что
And
основная накачка идет,
that main
идет из средств государства,
pressure would be
а доля
from
частных
the
средств недостаточная.
government means that the private investment is not enough to this ESG system.
Каким образом вы
And
видите,
how
что
do
можно
you
было
see
повысить инвестиционную
how
привлекательность
can
страны в
we
сфере
increase
ESG
the
для
investment
иностранных
attractiveness
инвестиционных
in sphere of ESG for foreign international specialists? Yes, it happens this way that in the frameworks of this current rates, I agree, yes, it happens this way that those projects that are going on within the frameworks of ESG, those projects that go out of the limits of co-financing with international organizations are those projects that go within the frameworks of the governmental support. Private sector, unfortunately, is not that much covered by these new trends. Probably it is because of pretty high interest rates for crediting that we have in the market, and that investors should identify the priorities of the profitability or the quality. and there is no essential demand for these financial tools. And as always, this primary probably will be the requirements on regulations in regards of these financial organizations, where we will identify the key elements, what we've started our discussion with today, especially for ESG financing. It will give specific push for private sector to form some proposals, some ideas. Good. Any comments to the regulator? I think no additions. And Halyk Bank. Murat, the question to you. Okay, I will say it really quickly. So your successful experience on reducing of this negative impact, ecological impact that you have shown in general, and your experience of financing, so you will share it in this atmosphere of brotherhood. Will you be able to do this? Yeah, I participate in these forums, and with our colleagues we get to know each other, and our report on sustainable development is in this public sphere, and it is available on our website. And of course, as a sector, we should have our position. The regulator is not supposed to give us recommendations instead of us and then some requirements behind it. If we want to have some collaborative work, and in order to avoid some unexpected activities and surprises, we should structure this dialogue inside the industry together with the regulator. We're ready. Participate in different platforms to collaborate and cooperate. Wonderful answer. It was obvious answer, expected. So two questions that are connected. How do you identify green and ESG aspect? How do you check the targeted allocation, and is it different comparing to the traditional standard on approval of the loan issuing? And what about the troubled and problematic loans? What is the share of those? Like several questions in this regards. Good question. Currently speaking, some kind of accepted inside the bank about the taxonomy that would be based on Kazakhstan or European or any other standards. Currently, we do not have it. We're working on this process within the frameworks of implementing ESG factors implementation into the process of risk management. And that is why we are really careful in this regards, that this or that loan is green, because risk to be in the situation that we have this greenwashing when company tries to show itself greener than they are in reality. And those loans that we have announced to be green, we were considering the second party opinion that some independent party was providing. Well, we shouldn't spend the money of ours or our clients on these consultations. Of course, it's not correct. We will have the structure of taxonomy, we will have some regulatory recommendations probably, and then mandatory requirements. And then this process will be working, and maybe something we will be able to publish. And within the frameworks of TCFD report, that will be some certain disclosure in sphere of our portfolios in different sectors and industries, and their impact on climate risks and transformation risks and other physical risks. Such disclosures we would like to implement. Those green projects that we have, instead of just saying too much, we have those loans that we have issued for the wind energy, solar power plant, bio, and we have the projects in sphere of circular economy and plastic recycling, issuing plastic goods by means of the recycled plastic, and we have the projects on cleaning and purification of soils in the west of Kazakhstan because of pollution, which is connected on oil production and the social questions. Since we are the largest bank in sphere of SME, we have several years of female entrepreneurship, and it's been done by means of our own means. And in cooperation with the Visa company, we have announced the next tranche, no matter about the growth of interest rates, and it's 5% only. And we had a project in the youth entrepreneurship. We do a lot of things, and in order to structure it by means of taxonomy, to publish it, we need a large scope of work to be done. And to identify the criteria and very detailed and precise work from point of view of criteria in order to do this some certain particular assessment and to understand it not only internally but to announce it to the market. Just automatically join the answer. So we have the legal act which identifies the order of issuing the green bonds, ESG bonds, and there it is written that the requirements are described in regards of green bonds. In case of issuing, there should be the preliminary decision and targeted usage of these should be proved within the frameworks of these conclusions. It's not necessary to have some specified verificator that provides this conclusion. And when it comes to the later period when we have the targeted usage and allocation of the asset that was received in case of placing the obligations, these bonds, so there should be there must be this conclusion of this verificator. If it is negative, what is called greenwashing, if this was proved, emittent at the level of bonds issued must take the obligation which is supposed to foretake some activities in case the money that was received during the project were sent not within the frameworks of the target. That is the act and legal act already, and it was taken into the legal force within the frameworks of realization of the law that was signed by the head of the government on the 13th of July. Not bad. And the emittent takes the responsibility on himself to buy this. The bonds or some penalties are prescribed or some other activities that he considers within the frameworks of the issue. And those who can purchase these securities, they basically evaluate and assess is it efficient enough or not, those steps that the emittent has written in his prospect. Thank you. I would like to add here too that yes, green financing and understanding of this green aspect, that's new turn, new step with UNDP. We have gone through this step and we have technical evaluation before getting the subsidies within the frameworks of UNDP. The project has technological assessment and we have the committee on managing the project where we have the specialists from ministries, the employees of UNDP, and we have the evaluation of the project. Before he gets the subsidy, he needs to prove that he's green. And this mechanism, it's been working for 2 years already, and about 80 projects got the support within the frameworks of this requirements. Thank you. Well, we have just about 7 minutes left. 3 questions. One question is to Daniel. Are you listening to us? Are you still with us?
In a second, yeah.
And 2 general questions, and Daniel can answer them too. So anyway, 2 questions are rather interesting. One question is in regards that we're talking about the importance, advantages, pluses of investment into ESG and about this topic. But there is another question. Okay, take into consideration all the problems and challenges that we have because of this war, inflation, COVID, and etc., and that is gone or not gone yet. But in which extent it will have the impact on the changes in prices, becoming more expensive, all the products that we consume for business, for simple consumer of goods and services. And the second question is connected to this too, that in general, in order to ESG has its end effect, final effect, it's about E, letter mostly, it depends on the consumers mostly. And if consumers change their opinion, it will provide the effect. You as banks, are you trying to have the influence on consumers? These are two questions that we will try to answer.
Daniel, question to you is like currently we see chaos in carbon markets and ESG approaches generally worldwide. Will UN, this or that organization, take bigger role in setting standards of ESG ratings, carbon units, methods, carbon units audit standards, and so on? And we know that recently, yesterday or 2 days ago, there was UN expert group report about net zero commitments among corporates, cities, and governments, which was quite damning. Yeah. Please, we start with your answer, please. 2 minutes maximum. Sorry.
Okay, sure, I can do that. I mean, I think you have covered as well during the panel many other interesting topics and questions. I mean, I was listening in. I think the regulatory one is going to come pretty strongly, and that is something that, let's say, that from the UN we're also looking into, given that you're asking now about the carbon markets and the possibility of a role of the UN regarding the ESG ratings and all the standards, is that I mean, we're not going to go more in depth into those issues at this stage, I believe. I mean, there's been some papers, for example, from our members of the Net Zero Accelerator Alliance on the governmental carbon markets, pricing, etc. But it's not a topic, I think, that beyond the work that we are already undertaking in, pushing discussions and trying to understand how the stakes are going to move, is going to go beyond at this stage. But if further evolutions happen in any jurisdiction, we will probably be involved. And I know that, for example, other institutions like UNDP are really working more in connection with the public sector, as I believe one of the previous speakers was also referencing to. But on our side, we work with private financial institutions. And on that side, I think, yes, the report of the Secretary General's high-level expert group for the commitments was bringing very interesting ideas. We were also providing some input when the consultation was open. We're trying as well to coordinate with the whole approaches that we bring from the financial sector. And I think in general terms, of course, we're all aligned in terms of the objectives that we need to achieve. And it is critical to generate harmonization at the global level, so approaches in one region can be reflected upon from other regions and to be understood as a way to achieve the common goals. And I think that's the main idea that we have behind and that is pushing our actions. So SDGs, Paris Climate Agreement, etc., are all key elements that need to be complied with, be it the E, the S, or the G of the ESG acronym. All of it is important, and I think we need to tackle it, especially in these trying times. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Then,
those two questions that I've already announced, who is the volunteer to answer? I think I will start. Well, here we have several questions, mostly when we're talking about this energy transition. I could see the assessment is $275,000 trillion, the investment that is required by 2050. In Kazakhstan, it is about 200 billion in the beginning. So that means someone has to pay for it. Who? It depends on the industry, it depends on the elasticity and where the consumers are ready to take these expenditures and costs partially on them, and that the company will decrease its profitability or leaves this market. So technically it would look this way. But again, we see the preferences from the side of consumers and people. If they see the ecology aspects in the service or in this sales, of course, more and more people will be ready to give this award to consumption of these or that product. And we can see that companies understand that more conscious and reliable approach to the expenditures and costs can decrease their check. And we have reduced the paper consumption 10% less. And you have prolonged the credit cards too, though it was the deadline. Yeah, about the plastic, since all the prices have grown for plastic and for paper, that was quite good savings. And it's not just about money spending, but money savings too. And there were questions in regards of the impact and influence. Of course, bank has provided their impact on indirect impact, basically, when it comes to this influence. When our investors were influenced, I don't know what happened with ESG. We started changing our approach, and it had a great aspect on ESG questions, ESG risks. So the same, we as finance institution, we try to go to our boards and we ask such questions. And that's how we change their approaches in those industries and sectors where they work. Thank you. Does anybody have anything to add? Difficult questions, frankly speaking, and these questions were asked really well. It's good that Halyk has answered. 4 o'clock, sharply. Very strange that we're finishing on time. If we don't have any questions, then I just wanted to express the gratitude. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Of course, organizers. Ekaterina, you ready? Okay. Let's read the answers of that questionnaire that we had. Well, it's nice that we have 0% for that. No, Kazakhstani business is not ready, but the distribution is quite good. It's quite logical. And if someone wants to comment, please. If no, then it's not mandatory. Well, it's nice that we as a country or sector were native for this, we're native for that, but it's nice that the answer is very optimistic and positive. Very good. Yes, according to the state requirements, of course, part goes to the financial regulator and then ecological regulator. Of course, where we have some questions too, but okay, good. Dear organizers, you will switch it on again, right? And you will include it into the reporting, you will send it to us down at the report of the conference. Okay, then our session had it moderate contribution. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to you.
И спасибо участникам за хорошие вопросы.
Хорошего дня, продолжения работы. Have a good day and